The flames rose higher than the trees, curling upward like angry hands reaching for the sky. I stood in the cold street barefoot, wearing nothing but smoke and shock, watching my house, the place I built, the place I loved, collapse into ash. The fire crackled like it was laughing at me. Neighbors gathered at a distance, whispering, their phone cameras glowing like fireflies in the dark. Yet all I heard was silence. A silence that felt louder than the sirens. The firefighters worked furiously, but the blaze seemed to have a will of its own. It wasn't an accident. I could feel it in my bones. Someone wanted this to happen. Someone ignited more than just wood and gasoline, they lit a fuse in my life that could never be put out. As dawn crept in, the smoke thinned, and I finally walked toward the ruins. The ground was still warm beneath my feet. Every memory I had was now dust. Photos. Letters. My father's watch. Gone. The officer on scene told me not to enter, but how could I not? That was my life burning in front of me. Then I saw it, partially burned but still readable. A white paper, edges black and curled. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was a HOA violation notice. My name, my address, written in bold. Issued just 12 hours before the fire. It wasn't just any notice. It was her handwriting. Karen Stanton. President of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. A name that always came with a headache. She was the kind of woman who measured grass with a ruler and fined people for leaving their trash bins out 5 minutes late. She once told me, rules exist to protect us, even from people like you. I never knew what she meant. Now I did. The CID arrived shortly after. They asked questions. They marked evidence. They studied the burned structure as if it could still speak. But I didn't speak much. I just watched the ashes drift in the wind. Every piece of debris felt like a clue, like a whisper. Like the fire itself was telling a story, one I wasn't ready to hear. But grief and suspicion walk close together. I began to remember every strange look she gave me. Every time she walked past my house without blinking. Every rule she enforced like she enjoyed it. And beneath all that, something even darker I hadn't seen before. I thought she hated me. Now I wondered if it was something else. One of the CID officers called me over. He held a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a melted keychain, my house key. The metal twisted from the heat. But attached to it was something new. A tiny silver tag. One I had never seen before. On it were 3 carved words. Rules are consequences. That was all it took. The puzzle clicked. The fire wasn't random. It wasn't desperate. It was deliberate. Planned. Personal. I looked at the ruins of my house, and for the first time, I didn't feel only loss. I felt purpose. Whoever did this wanted to erase me. But they forgot one thing. You can burn a house. But not the person still standing in front of it. The CID interrogation room always smelled like cold metal and tired truth. I sat across from her, Karen Stanton. No fear in her eyes. No guilt either. She looked at me like I was the only person in the room that mattered. That unsettled me more than anything she might confess. The case was built carefully. Neighbors saw her near my house hours before the fire, her car was spotted on the street, and the forensic team found traces of accelerant on her gloves. Everything pointed to her. But evidence didn't explain motive. And motive, that's where darkness hides. I asked her why she was there the night my house burned. She didn't answer. She just tilted her head and studied my face, like I was the mystery. CID agents watched from behind the one-way mirror, waiting for me to break her down. But somehow, she was the one breaking me. She leaned forward slowly, hands folded, posture calm, voice low. You live in that house for years, she said, yet you never once followed the rules. Why are you allowed to ignore the things that everyone else has to obey? There was no anger in her tone, only strange fascination, like she had spent a long time thinking about me. I told her rules don't justify arson. She smiled. Not a normal smile. A quiet one. One that said she knew something I didn't. You think I burned it because I hated you. Her voice became softer. But what if I didn't hate you at all? That silence afterward felt colder than the air conditioning. I asked her what she meant. She sighed, exhaled slow, then looked directly into my eyes. I couldn't stop thinking about you. Every time I saw your house, I felt something. She paused. I didn't burn it to destroy you. I burned it to get closer to you. The CID agents in the observation room reacted instantly, papers were shuffled, someone cursed under their breath. But I just stayed still. Her confession wasn't anger, it was obsession in its purest form. She talked about feelings she thought were wrong. She said the rules of the HOA were the only thing that kept her controlled, until she saw me continue to bend them. You broke the rules, she said, but you also broke the walls I built inside myself. She admitted that watching me ignore her regulations made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. It twisted into a burning need, one that eventually became literal. The more she talked, the more I should have felt hatred. But all I felt was confusion, and something darker. I shouldn't have felt anything but disgust, yet I couldn't deny a part of me was drawn to her intensity. The way she thought. The way she saw the world, the way she saw me. CID declared her unstable. They said she was a danger to the community. But as the interrogation ended and she was escorted out, she turned her head just once, and gave me a look that felt like a secret. A look that said this wasn't the end. She burned my house down. But something else ignited that night. Something far more dangerous than fire. The courtroom was packed, reporters scribbling notes, cameras flashing like lightning, and curious neighbors whispering behind their hands. They weren't here for justice. They were here for a story. And in the middle of that courtroom, she stood like she had written it. Karen Stanton. The woman who burned my house to nothing. The woman who confessed without fear. The woman who said she did it, because she felt something for me. Now she was waiting for her sentence, but she never looked at the judge. She only looked at me. The judge read aloud the charges: arson, property damage, endangerment. Each word echoed across the courtroom like hammers. Her attorney tried to argue psychological trauma, unstable emotions, obsessive behavior. But Karen didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She almost looked proud. As if the fire wasn't an act of destruction, but a confession of the heart. The CID agents sat behind me like guardians of logic. But when her eyes found mine, the whole courtroom vanished. For a second, it was just us. And the fire. Still burning. The judge gave her a chance to speak before sentencing. She stood slowly. Her wrists were cuffed, but her voice was free. She began, "I know what I did cannot be forgiven. I know the law must punish me. But there's something the law cannot measure." She turned her head, straight toward me. Emotions. The room went silent. My pulse felt louder than the judge's gavel. "I didn't burn his house because I hated him," she continued. "I burned it because every time I saw that house, it reminded me of how much I wanted to be inside his life." Some people gasped. Others shook their heads. The judge asked her to keep it relevant to the case. But her eyes stayed locked on mine. "This is the case," she whispered. She said she watched me from afar for years, the lights in my windows, the way I ignored her rules, the way I smiled when I thought no one was watching. She said it made her feel alive. And that feeling became a fire that spread through her entire being, until it finally found a match. When the judge announced her sentence, 20 years, she didn't break. Instead, she turned to me one last time. And in that crowded courtroom filled with judgment, I heard her voice, quiet as smoke, "You solved the crime, but you never solved me." The officers began to escort her away. But she twisted just enough to keep her gaze on me. Her eyes said something words couldn't. "This is not the end. And here's the part one haven't told anyone." As they led her through the double doors, something inside me moved. Something I don't understand. Something I haven't felt before, or maybe something I've been hiding for years. Sympathy? Curiosity? Obsession? I don't know. But for the first time since my house turned to ash, I felt warmth again. Not from the fire. From her. And that scared me more than anything. CID officially closed the case. But deep inside, I knew the real story was just beginning.